Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Relaunch event for the Semcer Center for Healthcare Innovation. My name is Rekha Manohar, and I am the Associate Director of External Relations for the Schaefer School of Engineering and Science. Today marks a new era for the Center for Healthcare Innovation under the leadership of Dr. Hongjun Wang, a prominent researcher and the founding chair of the Department of Biomedical Engineering. Today, you will hear from university leadership and center supporters, keynote speakers, and our brilliant faculty members. After the main event, there will be a reception and poster session by students in the gallery room, upstairs on the first floor. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Hongjun Wang, Director of the Semcer Center for Healthcare Innovation, to kick us off.
Thank you, Rekha. This is great. So good afternoon, everyone. And as the director of the center, it's my great pleasure to welcome everyone, including our faculty and staff, colleagues, and student alumni, our friends from other institutions, industries, and nonprofit agencies, and also prominent keynote speakers. And also the special guest, and also the Semcer family representative. Thank you guys for coming and to join us for this big event. We are planned for quite some time, actually. So for the relaunch, actually, we will have a full program and for this afternoon. But before I kick off the program, the event, I would like to share some several key points. Let me see if I can. So I would like to first highlight the purpose of the relaunch. So the relaunch really try to really acknowledge the special generosities from the Semcer family and their care about the success of students. And I want to use this opportunity to really acknowledge and really thank for their support all the time. And the second one also, because of this special, the donation coming from and make this a Semcer lab is really become viable and become one of this critical piece on the campus to have the success for the continuous of students. And I think our president will share more, his point of view of this one in his remarks. And in recognition, so that's why the center, the name have been changed and renamed as a Mary Jane and Frank Semcer Senior 65 Center for the Healthcare Innovation. And we make it shorter, easy for us to memorize and remember it. It's called the Semcer Center for Healthcare Innovation. So we did develop the new vision and new mission, and so this is the vision and mission is not coming from myself. It's coming from all the faculties collectively. So we actually work together to develop this new vision and mission. Clearly, the vision will not be, or mission cannot be achieved just by a few faculties. We need a lot of support coming from industry partners, from other institution support, and also from other stakeholders. So it will be a whole village. We need to make success. Now, what is the main purpose of this vision and the mission? Also, it's really for the convergence. We want to use the opportunity to converge our research and for the success of students, success of our faculty, and also we want to build a reputation for the community. So that's the main purpose. Now, meanwhile, we actually do use our manpower built on our existing strengths. We identify 5 cluster areas as listed here, and we want to use the opportunity to really highlight the success and also some excellence from our faculty today with posters and also the selected faculty's presentation. Now, meanwhile, I want to mention here there's one cluster area we want to develop further with the collaboration from the Stevens, the SIAI Institute. So that be AI in healthcare in the future. So that's on the way there, but we already think about that also. Now, I would like to announce the launch of the event officially. And also, please enjoy the rest of the program. Have a great time with us. Thank you, everyone.
At this time, I would like to invite President Nariman Farvardin to the podium.
Thank you very much, Rico. I think this is the first time you're displaying my picture back there. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you, Dr. Wong, for your remarks. Welcome to Stevens. I'm delighted to welcome all of you here, and I was thinking in anticipation of this meeting what I'm going to speak about, and I have such a strong emotional relationship with the Semcer family that I could speak off the cuff for a long, long time about the family, about their generosity, about this event, about the Semcer Center. But if I do that, I tend to ramble and I go on for a long, long time. And I know that there's not that much time in the program. So I'm told to stay on script in order to stay on time. So I'll do that. So guests and members of the university community, I'm totally delighted to welcome all of you to an event brimming with promise, purpose, and pride. The three P's, the relaunch of the Semcer Center for Healthcare Innovation. I am honored to welcome so many VIPs to this event and want to thank all of you for making time to be with us today. First, I want to acknowledge our exceptional keynote speakers, Professor Kam Leong of Columbia University and Tanya Silva, Alcorn, Senior Vice President at Pfizer, who will speak a little later, and that's why I need to keep my comments short so that you can spend more time with them. We thank you for joining us in this special occasion and look forward to hearing your wisdom and your insights. But most importantly, I want to recognize Frank and Mary Jane Semcer and their family, who I have had the privilege to know for more than a decade. It is with a profound sense of pride and really very deep appreciation that we stand together to relaunch the Mary Jane and Frank Semcer Senior Center for Healthcare Innovation. The Semcer support has been the cornerstone of this journey, and we are truly grateful for our enduring partnership. There are countless remarkable things that I could share with you about Frank Semcer. Countless remarkable things, but I'm going to limit them to a countable number for the sake of brevity. He's class of 1965 graduate, a proud Theta Psi brother, an incredible business leader, beloved family patriarch, and an ardent Stevens supporter. We all know this. First, by the way, these days, every time I talk to Frank, and I talk to him fairly regularly, but I don't see him as regularly as I used to. Every time that I speak with him, if it's on a Zoom call, I see tears coming down his eyes. He has an amazingly emotional relationship with this university. So first, there is his stellar career as chairman and CEO of Micro, the 75-year-old manufacturing company based in Somerset, New Jersey, that he built and grew into a global conglomerate making medical devices and other precision equipment for the healthcare, automotive, aerospace, and electronic industries. Micro products have positively impacted not only these industries, but also the lives of hundreds of thousands who have benefited from the products produced by Micro, as well as his employees, among them, of course, many Stevens graduates. Next, there is his enduring generosity and service to his alma mater, his bold vision, his humanity, and deep devotion to his family. And he has shared his family with Stevens. Brian, Frank's son, graduated from Stevens with a master's in technology management, and as president of Micro, has more than doubled sales revenues and opened Micro's first manufacturing facility outside the United States. Brian currently serves on the president's leadership council at Stevens. And Frank's daughter-in-law, Karen Carolonza, also sitting at this front table, is a member of the Stevens Board of Trustees, sharing her insight and expertise in communications and public relations. and giving us the same level of emotional support as Frank does. We are grateful for the extended Semcer family's involvement in the Stevens family, and we thank you all for being here today. Frank embodies a generosity of spirit beyond anyone I have ever known. He is generous to Stevens, to our students, and to those in need. His generosity is both astounding and inspiring. Whether mentoring students, employing interns and new graduates, serving on the board of trustees, establishing a faculty chair in biomedical engineering and student scholarships, or supporting the Semcer Tissue Reconstruction Laboratory, Frank Semcer and his family have made a profound difference in the progress of this university and in the acceleration of healthcare research on this campus. The legacy of the Semcer Center for Healthcare Innovation will stand as one of the most significant contributions from Frank and his family. They responded wholeheartedly to our call, enabling the establishment of a facility where our exceptional faculty, dedicated student researchers, and their collaborators can address the greatest healthcare challenges of our time. Beyond imparting knowledge to our students, this investment in healthcare innovation charts a course toward alleviating pain and improving the quality of life for future generations to come. Frank has said that he remembers Stevens as the place that helped lay the foundation for his bountiful life and successful career. The university's growth from the days that Frank was a student in the 1960s has been, of course, remarkable. But in particular, since 2011, and thanks in large part to dedicated alumni and friends of the university like Frank, Stevens has experienced truly exceptional and transformational growth in every measure of university's performance. We've reached new records in enrollment, academic profile, student diversity, faculty growth, research awards, and infrastructure investment. And because I have a captive audience, I can't help myself but to mention just a few highlights. Is that all right, Karen? So just a few numbers since 2011. Undergraduate enrollment in this university has grown by 69%. Graduate enrollment in this university has grown by 57%. The median SAT score of our first year cohort increased 156 points, to the point that if the president of the university were to apply, he would not get admitted. The number of women and underrepresented minorities in the first year cohort increased by 165 and 230 percentage points, respectively. These numbers are astounding. Our research awards increased by 198%. Full-time faculty grew by 45%, and tenure stream faculty grew by 77%. Our endowment has grown 101%. Stevens has invested more than $500 million in improving the campus infrastructure. And 97.3% of the class of 2022 secured their career outcomes within 6 months of graduation, with an average starting salary of $84,700. And this is for those who graduated in May of 2022. I don't have the statistics for May of 2023. I am confident that they will be even more impressive. Stevens completed an ambitious 10-year strategic plan in 2022, and we met or exceeded nearly every goal on or ahead of schedule. Building on that strong foundation, we have embarked upon a new 10-year strategic plan that will amplify our efforts to address some of the most challenging problems currently facing society. The convergence of biomedical engineering, healthcare, and life sciences is epitomized by our cross-disciplinary Semcer Center for Healthcare Innovation. This research domain is one of Stevens' key research pillars, dedicated to advancing solutions that directly benefit people worldwide. And aligned with our strategic priority, impact through research and collaboration, We are committed to forging dynamic partnerships across academia, industry, and government to maximize social benefit. Today, we are beginning to see the remarkable societal impacts of the Semcer Center for Healthcare Innovations Research. This work is instrumental in deepening our understanding of disease, refining diagnostic approaches, and advancing treatments for a variety of serious, life-altering health conditions, from diabetes and strokes to cancer, Alzheimer's disease, dementia, and spinal cord injuries. Stephen's work in these areas will help improve and save lives. And the world is taking notice of the important work and promise of our Center for Healthcare Innovation researchers. In the past 2 years alone, Stephen's faculty have received 3 major research awards from the National Institutes of Health. 5 of our biomedical engineering faculty members, Yu Gan, Jinho Kim, Ravi Nataraj, and Antonio Zafirio, who is actually sitting here, won early career awards for excellence in research from the National Science Foundation and the National Institutes of Health. In addition to NIH and NSF, our researchers' work is supported by the National Cancer Institute, NASA, the Department of Defense, the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, the New Jersey Health Foundation, plus corporate and foundation supporters, including Burroughs Wellcome and Susan G. Komen Breast Cancer Foundation, among many others. I'm wrapping it up. We collaborate with esteemed organizations such as Hackensack Meridian Health, Sloan Kettering Memorial Cancer Center, the University of Pennsylvania, the University of Michigan, and Fox Chase Cancer Center. And recently, we welcomed to campus Dr. Giovanni Caforio, the CEO of Bristol Myers Squibb, who discussed with members of our community and our friends the intersection of artificial intelligence and pharma. Our excellence in healthcare-related research also comes with an ideal location right across from the Hudson River from New York City. Newly renovated laboratory spaces and an agility and strong drive to innovate and collaborate with research partners and sponsors. Many of our alumni are making important contributions to healthcare in this country and around the world, and among them, Stevens graduate Pam Cheng, who earned her bachelor's and master's degrees from Stevens and has risen to executive vice president of one of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies, AstraZeneca. The Mary Jane and Frank Semcer Center for Healthcare Innovation is nurturing the next generation of medical innovations, and it is poised to tackle some of the most pressing healthcare issues in the world today. So once again, thank you to Frank and Mary Jane and the entire Semcer family, and to all who support and contribute to the center's important life-saving work. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, President Farvarden. I would like to now invite Dr. Ed Sinikowski, Vice Provost for Research and Innovation, to the podium.
Thank you. Good afternoon. And let me join in welcoming all of you here. The Semcer family, I've not had the privilege of engaging with you yet, but I look forward to it. Part of the reason for that is actually this week is the 1-year anniversary of my being here at Stevens. And I think it's appropriate to give you something of a fresh eyes perspective here, because it's still very fresh in my mind what characteristics of Stevens drew me here. Certainly the trajectory of the institution, as Nariman so aptly summarized in the numbers. It was also, of course, the people I met along the way in the interview process. The leadership, the inventiveness that came through even in the interview process of its faculty, and has only been affirmed when in getting to know the faculty here and the research enterprise that I now have the privilege of working to advance. So I came to know Hong-Jun, and as he was touring, giving me a tour of the center, I found out something very Stevens-esque, represented in the 3D printer that is does a lot of very impressive work, including the fact that it is able to manufacture proxies for tissue, as I understand it, a factor of 10 better, finer in structure than anything that was commercially available. And so what was done? Well, the Stevens folks got together and invented one. And now this is a showpiece at the center. I think it's just an extraordinary and beautiful demonstration of the nature of being a Stevens researcher. You saw in real time when Hong-Jun was talking about how we work here, as he pointed to Brendan and referred to the SIAI, the Stevens Institute for Artificial Intelligence, bringing the power of two recently relaunched centers together to constructively interfere, if you will, I'm using the terms of my own field, physics and spectroscopy, to make something even greater. And this is also part of the magic and the power of Stevens, that different quarters of the campus engage with each other in inventive ways, seeing a greater good beyond their own discipline, where their applications can be amplified in working in concert together. I think I'll close with comments about the students at Stevens. They are hungry to take on the world's leading problems. They are hungry for the experiential research experience. They are hungry for this, and it's a great thing because what they get out of this is an understanding not only of a particular discipline, but of themselves. So by working in an arena like the Semcer Center, their own capacity for understanding complexity, for understanding what it means to have grit and determination to solve a problem on their own, for what it means to reach out and connect and become part of a community and develop a community to help you solve a problem that's important to you. What can be better than to develop those attributes and those capacities in a world of complexity where many really just want to recoil from it and wish it wasn't quite so complex and fast moving. So at Stevens and in entities like the Semcer Center, students are developing that capacity to graduate, not only knowing that they have the capacity to engage in a complex, fast-changing world, but they have the capacity to lead in it. And I think that is, if we are graduating students with that understanding and that own self-awareness, then we have done our job as educators. So Hong-Jun, I look forward to supporting you any way I can from my perch, and also just the fun of learning what you are doing and how you are advancing everyone's future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sinikowski. This center aims to address gaps and issues related to advancing biomedical technology and healthcare delivery. That would not be possible without the generous philanthropic support of Mary Jane and Frank J. Semcer Sr. Frank serves on the Stevens Board of Trustees and is a proud alumnus of the class of 1965. Although he could not be with us in person for today's event, I was told he is joining us via live stream. We are, however, fortunate enough to have his sons, Frank Jr. and Brian Semcer, here with us, as well as many other members of his family. Thank you all so much for your tremendous dedication to our university. Before I invite them to the stage, I would like to draw your attention to the screen for a special video message.
The new center is a game changer for our school. I am thrilled that we can all stand here and see this magnificent structure. We are all so proud. I always believed that Stevens gave me the tools to be successful in everything I did. We were asked to support the building with a new healthcare innovation center. My business is in medical field, and this is so appropriate as New Jersey is one of the 3 major states in the country with biomed, pharma, technologies, and so many of our alumni are employed in these wonderful businesses. My family and I are excited, believing that this lab will be a healthcare innovation transformation to Stevens. We are an extremely proud Stevens family, and with 2 grandchildren and a nephew here at Stevens, we love our university. Thank you all.
Now, I would like to welcome Frank Jr. and Brian Semcer. Both Frank and Brian have followed their father's footsteps at Micro, a full-service contract medical device manufacturer, where Brian serves as the president and Frank is the director of human resources. Brian earned a Master's of Technology Management from the Stevens School of Business and is also a member of the President's Leadership Council. Welcome, Frank and Brian.
Nope, I didn't go to Stevens. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Frank Semcer Jr., son to Frank and Mary Jane Semcer. While Frank, my father, could not be here today, I'm honored to stand here on his behalf to usher in this exciting new chapter for the Semcer Center for Healthcare Innovation and share his remarks for this important milestone. So, for the next minute or two, you have to pretend I'm my father, okay? So, greetings. I'm sorry I'm not able to be with you here today. Today marks an exciting occasion, and I extend my sincere gratitude to each one of you for making the Semcer Center for Healthcare Innovation relaunch a top priority here at Stevens. When I graduated in 1965, still looking pretty good, right? I never could have imagined that the cutting edge research and innovation education that is happening here today at Stevens would even be possible. Stevens has become a trailblazer in healthcare research, medical technology, and drug discovery, positioning itself in the forefront of the global medical innovation. The groundbreaking advancements we have achieved are not only reshaping the landscape of healthcare and contributing to the improvement of patient outcomes, but also solidifying Stevens' prominence in the field. The impact of our work resonates not only with the academic community, but also in the broader context of society. These achievements are made possible by a combination of our state-of-the-art laboratories, renowned faculty, collaborative interdisciplinary approach to providing students with the best training to become the next generation of medical innovators and leaders. I'm incredibly proud to witness this progress. I would like to give special thanks to Hung-Joon Wong for his exemplary leadership and for driving remarkable progress within the center. I am also grateful to President Nariman Favardin, Provost Jeanmin Q, Dean Jean Zhu, and Vice Provost Ed Sinanowski for their exceptional leadership and unwavering support. It's a great honor to have the center bear the Semcer name. I am tremendously proud of Stevens and all the progress I have been lucky enough to witness firsthand. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I'm honored to stand before you today to represent the Semcer family in the relaunching of the Mary Jane and Frank Semcer Senior Center for Healthcare Innovation here at Stevens. My name is Brian Semcer, and I'm the current president of Micro, which is a full-service medical device manufacturer based here in New Jersey. I am also very proud to be mostly known around this great institution as Frank Semcer's son. Before becoming president of Micro in 2011, my father, Frank Semcer Sr., was the driving force behind our company's success. After becoming president of Micro in 2011, Frank Semcer Sr. was the driving force behind our company's success. Frank was a graduate in 1965 with a degree in chemical engineering. My father has always been an advocate for the growth of this institution from the day he graduated through today, as evidenced by the numerous family members, friends, and even our company's employees he has encouraged to attend and support the university. But the synergy between Stevens and our family extends beyond educational and philanthropic connections. Our company, Micro, is truly a Stevens success story, as much as it is a Semcer family success story. It's incredibly humbling to share that in 13 and a half months from now, Micro will be celebrating its 80th anniversary. Since its inception in 1945, Micro has grown globally and exponentially, remaining competitive and proudly keeping the majority of our manufacturing based right here in New Jersey. As a contract manufacturer in the medical device industry, we've seen firsthand the astounding growth in the healthcare industry in recent years and the need for rapid advancement and innovation in our manufacturing capabilities. At Micro, our commitment to innovation has established us as one of the premier suppliers for end-of-arm instruments for robotic surgery. With the rise of robotic and digital surgery, we are very proud to be engineering and manufacturing these devices, some of which can contain up to 150 different components. Our success in this area is a testament to how critical institutions such as Stevens and the Center for Healthcare Innovation are continuing to foster and train the next generation of engineers to face the next wave of opportunities and challenges in the healthcare industry. As our company and the industry continue to grow, we rely on the expertise and creativity and dedication of these graduates to stay on the forefront of innovation, underscoring the vital need for more individuals with the caliber of education and skills that Stevens graduates possess. At Micro, our co-op program provides hands-on engineering experience to students who are actively pursuing engineering degrees at Stevens. This partnership has not only enriched the educational experience of the students here at Stevens, but has also proven invaluable to our business. Since the initiation of the co-op program in the early 2000s, we have enrolled over 160 students, the vast majority of whom were Stevens students. One of the first student engineers to join the program in the early 2000s was a gentleman by the name of Steve Jacobson. Steve today is now the director of our new process engineering group at Micro. And today we proudly employ over 50 Stevens graduates, reflecting the strength of our great relationship. In addition to the support from family who embrace his entrepreneurial mentality, my father credits the growth of Micro to Stevens' rigorous academics and the invaluable experience and skills he gained during his time here. I would like to thank my parents, Frank and Mary Jane Semcer, for their decades of work and support for Stevens and demonstrating the importance of giving back to one's alma mater, most notably in the founding of the Center for Healthcare Innovation. I know I speak for both in sharing their pride in the expanded educational and diverse programs Stevens has offered over the years, and their belief that the relaunch of this important resource will continue to reinforce Stevens as a leader in the healthcare-related research. The enduring partnership between our family and this esteemed institution has not only shaped our lives, but has also played a pivotal role in the growth and success of our company. It's a testament to the power of education and the lasting impact that a dedicated community can have on shaping the future. Thank you for your time. Let us continue to build Stevens' role as a global force in shaping the next generation of medical innovators. Thank you.
Thank you both. Now, I would like to invite Jean Zhu, Lori Filer Dean of the Schaefer School of Engineering and Science, to introduce our keynote speakers.
It is my great pleasure and honor to introduce two speakers, starting with the first speaker, Dr. Kam Leong, who is Samuel Y. Shen Professor of Biomedical Engineering from Columbia University. Dr. Leong has published over 500 manuscripts and holds more than 60 issued patents. He is the recipient of the Academic Career Advancement Award from IEEE's Engineering in Medicine and Biology Society, and the Founders Award of the Society for Biomaterials. He serves as editor-in-chief of Biomaterials and is a member of the National Academy of Inventors, the National Academy of Engineering, and the National Academy of Medicine. Welcome, Dr. Leong.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean Su. And thank you for all the organizers, Dr. Wang, Helen, President, and of course the Semcer family. It's such an honor and pleasure to come to this vibrant university. Congratulations for the exciting growth, to share with you our work. I was very pleased to see Dr. Wang's vision statement. The first word was biomaterials, a topic dear to my heart. Now, biomaterials are widely used to combat inflammation. It would be a little bit difficult to see, but it doesn't matter. And so biomaterials have been used widely as a drug carrier to, I think it's the same because of because of the screen. So it's too bright, that is okay, but thank you. So this is technology. Yes, thank you. So this one works well. Biomaterials are used as a drug carrier to control, release the drug, to improve the efficacy and to reduce the toxicity of the drug. But biomaterials are used increasingly in other manner. For example, a sulfated polymer may block the initiation of the inflammation. Or biomaterials may be used to remove the pro-inflammatory factors such as ROS, or the focus of this talk on the scavenging of the damage-associated molecular patterns. When cells die, they release the intracellular content into the extracellular space. A collection of complex molecules called PAMs, or damage-associated molecular patterns, DAMs or MAMs. Now, these molecular patterns are sensed by immune cells, and that would lead to an upregulation of the inflammatory network and increase the secretion of pro-inflammatory factors. Now, that is a good thing. It's a natural. Thank you. Now, that is a good thing. It's a defense mechanism of our body. So sometimes these are called alarming, to alert our immune system to tackle those things. However, when these pathways are overactivated or inappropriately activated, that would lead to a number of inflammatory diseases shown in here, ranging from lupus to sepsis and to rheumatoid arthritis. So biopharmaceutical companies have been designing drugs to block these pathways. There are two drawbacks in this approach. One may not know exactly what is the pathogenic pattern. And two, these pathways are somewhat leaky. They are somewhat redundant. Blocking pathway may not be entirely efficient in blocking the inflammation. So when I was at Duke, we then proposed, because of the highly negatively charged nature of these compounds, these are mostly nucleic acid based, they are negatively charged. So we propose, well, use a cationic nanomaterials to bind them, to scavenge them. So then we will be blocking the initiation of inflammation upstream. And so that was the whole concept of this, and there are advantages and disadvantages I would highlight later. Now, so this was the very first study done almost 15 years ago. I have been working on drug and gene delivery for a long time, where you use a polycation to condense nucleic acids such as foreign genes into nanoparticles and deliver them to cells. That would be gene delivery. Now we are doing the opposite of gene delivery. Instead of delivering nucleic acid to the cell, to the body, we try to remove the pathogenic nucleic acid. So we screen a number of polycalines. Some are made by us, some are made by our collaborators, some are commercially available, to see which one has the highest binding affinity for the nucleic acid. And this is the reference. This is the reference material. This guy has the highest DNA binding affinity, is a polyamidoamine, is a dendrigma, generation 3, that has 32 primary amino groups on the surface. So this is the very first studies when animals were given pathogenic DNA or pathogenic RNA, or the animals would die within 24 hours. But if we also administer these soluble polycalines, we could somewhat alleviate the death rate. Now, this is a somewhat artificial model, but it provides the first proof of principle that this scavenging strategy may work. So that was done 15 years ago. And we published this work this year in a more clinically relevant model. This happens that this will be an overdose of acetaminophen, and that will cause acute liver failure. In this study, we show that indeed the cell-free DNA level in patients with such acute liver injury would be significantly elevated. And then a therapeutic strategy of degrading this cell-free DNA is a potent way to deal with this disease. And we have done careful study and showing that indeed that is a good therapeutic target, the cell-free DNA shown in this study. I am moving a little bit fast. I just want to give you a flavor, because I think the most exciting talk will be in the talk coming up, and I know all of you are looking forward to that, including me. So let me move on to the next topic on sepsis, which is actually the cause in many cases in the COVID. Even before COVID, it was the third most common death, but it's mainly from a local infection leading to a systemic infection that would cause tissue damage and in many cases death. Now, so this was all done pre-COVID. And at that time, we wanted to make sure that this scavenging concept makes sense. So we measured the cell-free DNA of healthy volunteer versus the sepsis patient. You can see there's a significant elevation of the cell-free DNA level. If we treat the serum of the patient, and we could see in this reported assay that the TLR9 pathway was activated. But if we treat the serum sample with the polycalines I show you, that would reduce that activation, and which is further reflected in the reduction of the secretion of the pro-inflammatory cytokines, such as TNF-alpha, IL-6, and so on. So it seems that this scavenging approach may have a therapeutic benefit. Just to give you a flavor, we did a lot of mechanistic understanding, and we know that this is going through the TLR9 pathway. The reason I highlight that I will show you later. Now, because the TLR9 is the the toll-like receptor 9 receptor is located in the endosomal compartment. And so that will have a significance later. But in this first study, again, we constructed the animal model. Is what is called a sickle ligation puncture model. Is a little bit gross in essence is the puncture of the cecum to allow the release of fecal matter into the intraperitoneal space, so then would lead to a polymicrobial infection. And we vary the distance of the ligation to create the mild, moderate, and the severe case of sepsis. And we focus on the severe case only. Without treatment, all the animals would die within 3 days. But with treatment, with just this polycalline, could improve the survival rate to about 40%. And that is as good as the clinically drug used in the clinics in China. Now, because the TLR9 are mostly located in the endosomal compartment of the cell, we hypothesize that nanoparticles, because of their natural intracellular trafficking pattern, will go to this endosomal compartment. So we thought maybe a nanoparticulate scavenger would work better. And we use this mesoporous silicate nanoparticles because of the high surface area due to the mesoporous structure. We functionalize that with the polycalline, 2 different types, then we could improve the survival rate to about 50%. It is still not perfect, but this again showing the concept of this scavenging may work. And this is also showing in the reduction in the damage to the tissue, such as the lung, liver, kidney, spleen, and the heart. So, and again, this mechanistic study, indeed, the nanoparticulate scavenger would stay in the endosomal compartment longer and at a higher content. And also the cationic nanoparticles would also preferentially accumulate in the inflamed tissue such as the colon. Next, let's move to this inflammatory bowel disease model. IBD is a complex disease. It has a genetic basis. It also has an environmental trigger. Right now, the therapy mostly focus on the alleviation of these multiple inflammatory triggers. And so, again, we wanted to make sure that this scavenging idea makes sense. So we measure again the cell-free DNA level in healthy controlled donors, IBD patients, and IBD patients that have been medicated. You see a clear elevation of this cell-free DNA level, and that level, those levels are correlated with the severity. And we also look at the inflammatory markers in the tissue and so on. So what we could say that indeed this higher serum cell-free DNA level is correlative with the disease stage of IBD. So then we apply the nanoparticulate scavenger I just showed you. And this data show that in an acute colitis model, we could see a therapeutic benefit in both the preventive and the therapeutic setting. The most important data, of course, is still the survival data, but one could see the benefit in the weight, colon length, disease activity index, and so on. And also shown in the tissue damage and the inflammatory status of the colon. We try oral gavage, intraperitoneal injection, and also rectal. And they all work well, particularly the oral delivery route works well. Now, so that's an acute colitis model. We also look at the chronic colitis model, and we could see the same benefit with this scavenging approach. Now, what I have seen you so far, those two examples, and we have about 4 to 5 more different animal models showing that this scavenging concept would work. What I have seen you so far, shown you so far, is without the concept of conventional drug, unless you view this polycaline as a macromolecular drug. But there's no reason why we cannot also incorporate drug delivery functions into these nanomaterials. So that's kind of the evolution of the drug delivery field. People thought of a carrier as something totally passive. The only function is to control the release rate of the drug. Then people developed carriers that would respond to stimuli such as pH, temperature, enzyme level. And now we are thinking, making the carrier itself, even in the absence of drugs, that can have a therapeutic functions. These are the different functions that researchers in the field have been trying to build in. When we wrote the review article 3-4 years ago, these are the functions, but now there are many other functions that people have been trying to build into that carrier. So I would like to show you the application of that. And we apply that to chemotherapy. Chemotherapy, by and large, works well. We all know that it has many different side effects and so on. One side effect may not always be clear to people is that chemotherapy can actually increase the risk of metastasis. And that is the case in breast cancer. About 20, maybe 15, 20% of the cases, chemotherapy would actually increase that risk. This study show that, not by us, that chemotherapy, the use of paclitaxel, one of the most commonly used chemo drug, would increase the expression of TLR4. A recent clinical report showed that the long-term survival of women patients with breast cancer is correlated with the TLR4 and TLR7 expression with with lower survival rate with high TLR4 and TLR7. So then it is tempting to speculate if we can manipulate that, would that have an effect? So using this base material, reference material that I show you, we created a small library by conjugating a lipo moiety as well as a charge group to create a scavenger with the properties of capable of encapsulating chemotherapeutic compounds, but still retain the property to scavenge nucleic acid and at the same time, not so toxic. So with the balance of those three factors, we settle on this compound. We applied this to the highly metastatic breast cancer model, comparing the naked drug with the control release group with the 2 nanoparticles, and also comparing the naked drugs with these polycations but without any drug. And then we further, in this 2 nanoparticle group, convert all the positive charge into negative charge by converting the primary amino group to carboxylic groups. The control release kinetics from these 2 nanoparticles are very similar. 100% of the drug all come out within 3 to 5 days. So this is the tumor progression at the primary site. This is nothing special. Many other nano medicine groups can do the same thing. What we focus on is the metastasis to the lung. And because that is our focus, we spent a lot of effort to make sure that we have a quantitative way to characterize the metastasis to the lung. And this was a study published in 2017. The Netherlands government had a data set of about 400 to 500 patients with breast cancer that have metastasized the lymph node. They invited groups throughout the world to come up with an algorithm to analyze those sections. So we picked the best one, adopted for our purpose, and show that we could, in our hands, using one of the best algorithms, to have a training accuracy of 98% and a validation accuracy of 91%. So, and this is the study. So healthy groups, these are all mice, saline with the tumor, but without any treatment, you can see the metastasis to the lung. But when the animals were also treated with the naked drug, one could clearly see this effect of chemotherapy-induced metastasis. And these 2 groups, although without any drug and has no benefit in the tumor reduction in the primary site, but could reduce the metastasis to the lung too. This one has the control release benefit, but because it's negatively charged, does not have much scavenging effect. It is in the experimental group with control release and with the scavenging function that could inhibit the tumor growth at both the primary site and at the metastatic sites. So, well, then a lot of mechanistic study, indeed, we could lower the cell-free DNA in the animal, which is a biomarker used in the clinic right now, that the cell-free DNA is used to monitor the progress of a cancer. Not all, but in many cancers. And this is also show that the cationic nanoparticulate delivery system can reduce the pro-inflammatory cytokines in circulation. So that was a highly metastatic model, and we applied this whole thing to a more clinically relevant still animal model, and we could see the same phenomenon, that in a quantitative, unbiased manner, we could say that this scavenging could have the benefit of control release and at the same time to reduce the chemotherapy-induced metastasis effect. So very quickly, I mean, there is a skepticism, I think, a healthy skepticism. How can something so simple seem to work so well? So we work very hard to provide the mechanistic understanding. So we did a lot of work in the past few years on doing single cell RNA-seq to analyze them, going this very quickly, that we identify 7 major cell types with a number of cell types. And with this single cell analysis, we can show that this nanoparticulate delivery system can inhibit the cancer stem cell proliferation. We also show that this could downregulate the metastasis-related genes and could also inhibit the TLR activation. And we show that they could shift the macrophage phenotypes to pro-inflammatory to anti-inflammatory. And this is correlated by the QT PCR results, and that it would activate the T cell infiltrating into the tumor microenvironment a little bit differently. This is a little bit speculative, but this is exciting in the sense that this is a new finding. That is, the chemotherapy would actually lead to an exhaustion of the T cells. And the cationic nanoparticular treatment seem to be able to mitigate that, although we have to do more work. So the exciting thing is that we have also been doing a lot of proteomic study. We look at tens of thousands of proteins in this study, and we show that the proteomic analysis is consistent with the single cell RNA-seq study. That is, at the protein level, the nanoparticulate scavenger could also downregulate the metastasis-related proteins. So the summary of this study is that without really changing the control release delivery system much, all we have done here is to make the carrier cationic that could have a scavenging function, show that this could lower the cell-free DNA in the serum, lower this pro-inflammatory cytokines, and lower the effect of the chemotherapy-induced metastasis. And we think this will have a broad applicability to other cancers. And this year we have published 2 more papers and showing that this concept will also work in radiation therapy of breast cancers. And okay, I will finish quick. Now, okay, so just very quickly. So I've shown you those soluble scavenger, nanoparticulate scavenger. They can also be in different composition and in different shapes. For example, we can conjugate cholesterol to this compound, mesoporous silicon nanoparticle you have seen. We can also graft a polycation to a biocompatible, biodegradable polymer. We have, in this case, made a 2D scavenger. You see, molecular layer thick, 500 by 500 nanometer or so then they would be more capable of binding the vesicle-associated dams. And it could be an inorganic scavenger, or it could be in the form of a macroscopic scaffold, which we have shown that by making them, turning them cationic, it could also mitigate the information. And this year, we also published another structure hyper branch polymer with highly charged to also have that benefit. So I first started this work at Duke with Lee and Bruce Seringer at Duke. We work on this different animal models. Since I moved to Columbia, I continue to work on this concept. In the past few years, we have published a number of papers showing that this scavenging concept could work in a number of these inflammatory models shown in here, ranging from arthritis, sepsis, IBD, inflammatory bone loss, spinal cord injury, abdominal trauma, metabolic disorder, and breast cancer. And so there are many scientific questions I have not answered yet. You might wonder what exactly has been scavenged. So we spend a lot of effort. I've shown you some of our efforts. And there is also a structure property relationship we are trying to establish right now. You might also wonder, well, when we bind this pro-inflammatory factors, this damned molecule, what happened to them? Would they enter the immune cells again to activate the immune cells? We haven't seen that, but we will have to do more work. A very important question is how to control the timing and the magnitude of information. Information is not all bad. It can be good. It's, again, a defense mechanism of our body. Cytokine storm is actually one of the potent strategies in dealing with cancer. Now, acute inflammation may be useful for some of this, but chronic inflammation cannot be good. So the next frontier, what we are trying to do, is it possible to design a dynamic biomaterials that can adapt to the progression of the inflammation? An example would be in the sepsis. Inflammation in the early phase is good, but to switch over, then we need to inhibit the inflammation. And we are working hard to find out what this flipping turning point would be and how to do that. There is a vast parametric space where one could design these scavengers in terms of size, shapes, composition, charge, ligand, without ligand. So there is a lot of science to be done. With that, I would like to thank all my students, fellows, collaborators, and I was listening to your talk. You have a list of the collaborators. Stevens worked with. Columbia was not on the list. So maybe in the future, we can also collaborate. I've always said last time, I think we are only a we are only a swimming distance from one another. So I look forward to future interactions and thank you for your attention.
So we'll take some questions now. We have a couple of students in the room with microphones. So please raise your hand so they can come to you.
Thanks very much for a really nice talk. I'm wondering if you can comment on the specificity of the scavenging. It seems
Yes.
like you've got positively charged particles, and almost anything that's negatively charged would get sucked up by them. So how do you differentiate the things you want to get rid of from the things that you don't want to get rid of?
That's a good question. We do not have good control right now. That's why we are working so hard to find the mechanistic understanding. How can we correlate the structural property function with charge, which we can vary from mildly positive charge to very highly positive charge to see what are the factors that we have removed. So the control is not good yet. That's what I meant. We are inhibiting the inflammatory network upstream. It's powerful in that way, but it's disadvantageous in the way that it is not specific. So this is all part of the benefit to risk ratio analysis.
If I could ask a second question.
Please.
Once these things have done their scavenging, what happens to them? How are they removed from the system, or what's the next step in that?
Now, so many nanoparticles in the body, if they are small, which is not in this case, can be cleared by the renal system, and they can also be cleared by cellular mechanism. But the questions of this pathogenic dams and so on, the wishful thinking is wishful thinking. The enzymes, the DNAs will continue to break it down to the point that it cannot be recognized by the immune cells.
I was just wondering, were you able to retrieve the nanoparticles in any manner to analyze if the DNA is there in it, whether the cancer fats are in the nanoparticles? Is it possible for you to retrieve through the maybe urine or blood or serum?
Yes, thank you. Well, you have a good way to analyze those. We would be happy to talk with you. So we made those porous iron oxide nanoparticles, functionalize them on the surface with polycations, then we should be able to bind them and then to retrieve them. But it turned out the analysis of these DNA fragments, which would be tens of thousands of them, is very difficult. Please.
Dr. Leong, thank you very much for the inspiring talk. Some studies showed that the nanoparticle injected systemically, they can end up in a different location of the body depending on their electrical charge.
Yes.
Have you seen some accumulation of your particle in certain location of the animal's body?
Right. So the one that we did on sepsis, they do preferentially accumulate in the inflamed colon tissue. You probably know the EPL effect in the tumor situation, and inflamed tissue has same properties that their microvasculature is leaky. So these cationic nanoparticles can have a higher accumulation in the inflamed tissue, and we have seen that.
I think because of each time,
yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much for a wonderful talk. As a token of appreciation, I have a little gift to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so now I would like to introduce our second speaker, Ms. Tanya Silva Alcorn. She is the Senior Vice President of Sterile Injectable and Biotech Operations at Pfizer. Ms. Alcorn started her career at Pfizer almost 2 decades ago, and now oversees 20 manufacturing plants globally, which produce more than 200 medicines and vaccines, and more than 4 billion doses each year. Ms. Alcorn and her team worked to distribute Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine and COVID-19 oral treatment, distributing over 3 billion doses of the vaccine all over the world. She has been recognized as a rising star and a luminary by the Healthcare Business Women's Association, and is a member of CHIEF, which is a senior executive women's network. Alcorn is passionate about mentoring young women in STEM-related fields and is part of the mentorship program at Pfizer. She's also a graduate alumni from the Stevens class of 2005. Welcome, Tanya. Thank you.
Tanya will conduct her talk in a conversational form. This is meant to be interactive. So once again, the microphones are around the room. So if you wish to ask her a question, please raise your hand. And to help moderate the conversation, I would also like to invite Greg Townsend, Senior Director of Corporate, Government, and Community Relations, to the stage. Welcome you both.
Good afternoon. Hi, everyone.
Hello, everybody. Thank you all for being here. For those of you I have not met, again, my name is Greg Townsend. I'm Senior Director of Corporate Government and Community Relations here at Stevens. I'm really happy to be up here having this conversation today with Tanya. The fireside chat was her idea, but now she's stuck up here with me, so careful what you wish for. Just a few thoughts before we start from my perspective. This is a really exciting occasion for me and Stevens, but for me personally, because you know, as you can tell, my position is corporate government relations. This center has the potential to become a real hub of innovation, not just for Stevens faculty and students, but for the regional industry and the economy. As some have noted before me, the multidisciplinary nature of this center will provide a foundation for diverse perspectives and solutions to novel and longstanding issues in healthcare. And this approach is becoming increasingly important. I mean, it's pretty rare, I think, these days to find a societal need that can be addressed by one discipline alone. And if you look at the tagline of our strategic plan, inspired by humanity, powered by technology, I think there are a few fields that embody that tagline more closely than the industry of healthcare. And industry is often a bellwether for what innovation is possible or needed, where the most critical pain points are, where resources can and should be directed. And that's why I think it's just so exciting to have Tanya here to provide insight into that world, and how centers like the Center for Healthcare Innovation can leverage the research being done, work together with industry, and advance these really critical issues in healthcare. So I'm going to kick this off with a few questions for Tanya, and then, like Reka said, we'll open it up to the audience as well. So let's get started.
Sounds good.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
These are very challenging questions. So first, to set the table, I think I and the audience here would just love to hear about your journey. Just tell us about your experience, your work so far with Pfizer and in the healthcare industry.
Great, thank you. And again, thank you to Stevens for having me. Thank you to the Semcer family. Frank seems like an amazing person that I would love to meet. You can like feel the love for healthcare and for Stevens. So thank you for the investment in this great center of innovation. And as a Stephen alumni, actually, I took advantage. I was working for Pfizer, and Pfizer has a great partnership with Stevens. One of the programs that the partnership offers is an ability to work full-time and then come to Stevens, and the company pays for your education. So I took full advantage of that program. I got my master's in engineering from Stevens through that Pfizer partnership while I worked full-time. So Stevens, I love being back here, so thank you for having me. So my journey, I've been in the pharma industry for over 25 years. I was pre-med in early on in school. So I always had a passion for patient care, for healthcare. And as I started to intern and do different things when I was in university, I decided to pivot into pharma. Originally, I thought I wanted to be in the lab. I started in the lab and in research, and then I quickly realized it wasn't for me and went more into manufacturing. I worked at a vaccine manufacturing facility for over 10 years. The best experience in my life that I could have asked for, and then just kind of stayed in that innovative biotech space and then expanded into different sterile injectable operations. So today, I've been with the company for over 25 years, which is pretty crazy. And it's been a great journey. Pfizer has one clear purpose, which is to deliver breakthroughs that change patients' lives. So we are constantly focusing on innovation. Again, my space and how I fit into that mission of the company is, focused on manufacturing. So once our great scientists discover through partnerships like we have with several universities, and we discover great medicine and we find they're clinically successful, then really my team takes over to produce at scale those medicines and get them out to patients who need them as quickly as possible. Through that journey, I also found my husband at Pfizer. So we are really a Pfizer family, and we have 3 beautiful children who are so far embracing their love of STEM as well, 2 daughters and a son. So we embed STEM in their lives as well. Yeah, that's a little bit about me. Thank you.
I met my wife at a YMCA camp. We were counselors, not attendees. So CHI is positioning itself, in my eyes, and I think many of the folks here, to be a leader in the next generation of healthcare innovation. I think we've already kind of set the groundwork in today's event as a tipping point. I think we're really gonna go full steam ahead after this. In your eyes, and in the context of today's event, what does the future of healthcare look like?
Great question. And I was remiss to thank Dr. Leong for his talks. Very, very motivating, very, very impressive work. And some of the points you mentioned on some of the artificial intelligence, I think for me, when I think about the future of healthcare, I think about probably 3 big pillars. One is, one around personalized medicine and genomics and gene therapy. Although it's been slow going, and I know there's still a lot of, I'll say, nervousness in the field, I do believe that is going to be a major forward innovation for treating especially rare disease patients, and it's something that Pfizer is really passionate about. So I think that's one area. The other one is artificial intelligence and machine learning, the ability to take massive amounts of data and start to understand more predictively, predict human health and be more precise in diagnosis and treatment, and then research, I think is absolutely going to amplify and create great innovation in healthcare. The way I think about it at Pfizer, and then what we're doing, is that we have to be as innovative, because if we're going to diagnose and treat, if the diagnosis is going to happen faster, most likely then the research needs to follow that. The innovation around new treatments will follow, and then we need to manufacture faster than ever. So we take a lot of the way we take AI into manufacturing is we use it to improve the speed in which we can produce quality medicines. So we use a lot of soft sensors, we use a lot of predictive data analysis to help tell us when our process may be drifting from the ideal process, versus in the past, you would only find out after testing a batch and then you would have to reject a batch. So before you get that far, a lot of what we're leveraging machine learning is to really be more predictive, so we can better produce quality medicines. And then probably the third is around what I would say, and it goes back to AI a bit, and I'll say the Internet of Things is around both wearables and just how I think every generation and the technology that we everyday patients will use will allow the medical community to have better access to data. So again, couple that with AI and you get faster predictive diagnosis. And then with telemedicine, we saw a bit during the pandemic, the use of telemedicine. And I think for us, the way we saw it is the ability to get to underserved communities. So expanding access and care to underserved communities or to rural areas. Even for our work with the COVID vaccine, it was really important for us to be able to get to all areas, including a village in Ghana. And so how we used technology, both from a telehealth perspective, and then we used drone delivery to really make sure that we were able to serve all patients in all areas. So I do think that coupling of telehealth along with the ability to have more wearables and remove the barrier of someone having to come into the office to be treated is going to expand the patient population that then will have access to treatments.
You mentioned artificial intelligence and machine learning, and it's obviously there's a lot to be done in that field. Stevens just about a month ago also relaunched the Stevens Institute for Artificial Intelligence. And so I think that kind of leads into the next question I have, which is, how do you see academia and industry working together to advance technology development, commercialization? How can or should industry be leveraging the expertise at institutions of higher ed? It's a little different now than it was, 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, it's a great question. And again, I think what the pandemic did start to do is break down some barriers between, I'll say, quote unquote, competitors in academia and the industry. So I do think that, so again, I think about it in three ways. One is I do think there is I think the collaboration between academia and industry in the space of research, right? So I think what academia does really well is have expertise in cutting edge science. What industry does really well is take that and harness it and then amplify it at a larger scale. So I think continuing to have that partnership between industry and academia from a research and development and then getting medicines to patients is one area. The second is around, what I was talking about at the start around internships and co-ops. And I know Micro mentioned co-ops as well. The importance of the earlier we can get talent both ways. So, get talent from universities working in, I'll say, real life industry settings. And then the earlier industry can get talent that is learning different, the newer cutting edge technology, then both, it's like a perfect synergy. And we have been really doubling down on our early talent program and really trying to partner more and more with universities to get to do co-ops and internships. So I think that is another way industry and academia can continue to focus more than I think we've had in the past. And the third is just the knowledge exchange. Again, during the pandemic, we started to break down some barriers around sharing knowledge, sharing data. I think conferences like these, having events where you can bring industry and academia together will continue to allow for kind of open exchange of information.
Sometimes you have those moments where it kind of necessitates that bridging of the gap. And then when things somewhat return to normal, they revert back to the prior state. What are you seeing now in that space?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely seeing it. I think we're seeing it across the board, even with our work with a lot of regulatory agencies, where we had, I would say, we had more space for innovation. Even that's starting to kind of go back to to, I'll say, the longer way of working. So it is a watch out for us. And I think that's why the more we can have sessions and conferences and partnerships where we bring industry and academia together in the same room, I think nothing breaks down barriers easier than just getting everyone together.
Along those same lines, I mean, obviously there's been a lot happening in the healthcare world in the last 5 years. An understatement to say the least. What do you feel was the most significant innovation in the last 5 years?
So of course, I mean, the one that comes to mind is the work, I'll say the acceleration and innovation with the development of mRNA platform. So mRNA was a technology that many companies were starting to look at as a faster way to produce vaccines. But it was still very early on. And again, there were still, just like similar to gene therapy, it kind of was slow. I'll say it's slow going. So when the pandemic hit, and we started to realize, and again, Pfizer partnered with BioNTech, who is a fantastic biotech company, to really leverage that platform. There was no way we could have produced at scale that quickly a quality, vaccine without a platform such as mRNA platform. It's from a manufacturing perspective, it's much more flexible, and it cuts down your manufacturing time by over 50%, and you get the same quality vaccine with the same efficacy. So that was probably for us, and I think for the world at the time, one of the biggest breakthroughs that we had. I think looking to the future, I think that again, the space, I think obviously artificial intelligence and machine learning is going to continue to be a focus area. And again, I think it's one that we should run towards. I think there is a lot of nervousness, and obviously we need to do it in a responsible manner, but the power of being able to take data, like, millions and millions of data, put it into a machine and have it create, algorithms for you that can help predict things, in your manufacturing process or in your development to help you reach a point faster. Again, you still need humans to obviously be part of the process, but it just cuts down on the analytical time you would have gotten there to go through that much data. So I think that is one. And then, as I talked about, digital health and the focus on making sure that we have a responsibility around ensuring that everyone in even remote areas gets the care they need. And so a lot of the technology and innovation we're seeing with the vision of every person in this world deserves access to healthcare is a lot of new technology like drone delivery. So we are investing in drone delivery, which has been really successful so far, where we take drones with a package of medicine and we airdrop it in different areas. And we use then, for, like I said, telehealth and wearables to diagnose and make sure that, and then, deliver via drone technologies to those underserved populations. So I think that is going to be a future innovation for us, because there's an expectation that we serve all, not just those in, I'll say, the more developed nations.
Touching on AI again, just briefly, many are proceeding with caution with AI for a lot of reasons. And I've spoken to companies that have, for example, outlawed the use of ChatGPT and things along those lines. And you just mentioned that AI and all of the benefits that could go along with it in the next 5-10 years can be massively beneficial to the speed at which you can develop medicines, to how they're delivered. And do you find industry is embracing it on the whole, or are they hesitant?
I think industry is embracing it, but I think each of us are trying to do it on their own because we're concerned around the intellectual property. So for instance, we have our own version within our company of I'll say the similar ChatGPT, but it's called something else that we can leverage, and it's great. I use it all the time. I use it every day. It's a fantastic tool. Again, it just cuts out so much time to help you in whatever analytical work you're trying to do. But we need to do it responsibly. So we have a lot of controls within our company on how we use it. But we have a whole team that all they do is manufacturing intelligence. Because in the end, like everyone's a technology company. Yes, we make quality medicines that make a difference for patients. But the best way to do that is to leverage technology and leverage machine learning and embrace it in a safe, smart way. So I do think the industry is working towards it. Right now, I think we're all working on our own. But I think there is more and more through, again, conferences and industry forums, and then through regulatory, I mean, there's regulatory legislation that's trying to bring a lot of the industry together. So we all kind of agree on making sure they're all doing things the best way we can and learn from each other. But I do think in our healthcare industry, if you don't embrace it, you're going to fall behind. You just need to, again, be really smart and always have the best integrity in mind when you're working on implementing machine learning.
President Farvarden earlier mentioned how Stevens over the last 10 years has seen a really significant growth in diversity, women, underrepresented minority students, et cetera. Last week, we had a conference on campus called the Leadership Conference, and it was all about empowering women in the STEM fields and, again, expanding that diversity. I know this is a passion of yours. How would you describe how important this is to the future of the industry? And how can institutions like Stevens and centers like this one drive us towards greater diversity in STEM education and careers?
So first of all, thanks to Stevens for hosting that great conference. I think one way you do it is you have the conversations, you have these conferences that give an avenue for underrepresented minorities in the community to then have a place where they can either hear great speakers or be able to have networking opportunities in those type of conferences. I always start off with like the business lens, right? No matter what study you look at, like over and over again, right? If you're just focused on business outcomes, it's very clear. Two clear stats I always use. One is companies that have a diversity, equity, and inclusion focus are over 1.5 times more innovative. And that translates to a 15-fold increase in sales revenue versus those that don't look for diversity at all levels of their organization. So we know that having diversity, whether it's gender diversity or ethnic diversity, having diverse leaders at the table will give diverse perspectives when you're trying to solve for a problem, right? If you have everyone that comes from the same background, no matter if it's all female or all male, you're going to probably reach one conclusion, right? Versus if you have diversity in thought, which comes from different backgrounds, different experiences, right? It's as simple as that, right? It's not I would say it's not a male-female thing. It's just equity, right? And having diversity at every level in the organization will bring better problem solving, faster problem solving, better solutions, better business results, better innovation. So it's like, for me, as simple as that. When I started about 25 years ago in the manufacturing, in the labs, I would say it was more diverse from a gender perspective. But when I went into, I'll say, the more traditional manufacturing, I was the only female in the room, the only one, right? So I used to wear a skirt, and then I stopped wearing a skirt because I know it sounds silly, but I wore pants because I felt like I needed to fit in and wear pants. And that's when you're in your 20s. You're literally the only one that looks like you. And for me, it was gender. Then yeah, you can't use your voice. You feel like you're working so hard to not do the work. You're working hard to fit in, right? And then you're not your best self. So it's just that. It's that passion. It's that what drives me. It's obviously. I always say I never want someone to come to work feeling that they're working so hard just to fit in, because then we're not getting the best of that person's mind. And that's not how we want someone to be treated at the company. So for Pfizer has been, again, a phenomenal company. They put action and programs in place. So things like conferences like Stevens had, though you can't underestimate those type of conferences, allows networking opportunities. And I would ask, putting in place mentorship programs is another great way to grow diverse leaders through the organization. But that's really why it's a passion for me and why it should be a passion for every company. Because in the end, whether you care or not care, it does deliver better business outcomes. And then of course we should care because we want to, we should be a company and an organization that reflects the community and the patients we serve, which is diverse patients, right? We don't serve only male or only female, right? We serve every patient. So it's important for us. And again, within the company, we have a ton of programs. We have increased gender diversity at all levels of the organization by almost 50% over the last 5 years. VP and above 50%, and then throughout the different levels of the organization. So we measure it at every level of the organization. So entry level, supervisor, senior manager, manager, senior manager. We're looking for a diverse colleague base at every level, and then of course including at leadership. So first of all, I always say you have to measure it. If you don't measure it, usually then if you don't have the data, then you're not going to action it. And then you need to put programs in place like mentorship programs and partnerships like with the Healthcare Business Women Association and things like that.
Thank you. I mean, very well said. I am out of questions, but that is by design because we wanted to open it up to the audience to ask some questions as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Tanya. That was wonderful. And thank you. I loved when you said innovation to patients, bringing that's Pfizer's mission, and thinking about the hard to reach patients. And I'm just wondering, reflecting sort of on the pandemic, what are the challenges you see with that moving forward? I just know personally there was misinformation, disinformation, assault on science at one point. What learnings and what are the challenges you think?
Yeah, I mean, at the time in 2020, when we were a company, one that was trying to protect our colleagues, right? So I was worried about the colleagues that I have at the site that had to keep going to the site and make critical medicines, right? So we were both trying to protect our colleagues, trying to understand the pandemic and develop a vaccine. And then there was all this, I'll say, hate against science and disinformation and things like that. I always, what we always just talk about is, stay focused. It's all a distraction. It's a very loud 2% of the population or whatever you want to say. But I always tell the team, just ignore that, stay focused. If you stay focused on your North Star, which is for us delivering quality medicine, making this world a healthier place, delivering breakthroughs to those patients who have unmet medical need where there's not yet a therapy, just stay focused on that, and just everything else will kind of fall to the wayside. So that's what we tried to just, and then we did a lot to try to lead the conversation. So we have a great communications, group, and we try to do a lot to lead the, to put facts out there, but, sometimes that doesn't get to the people you want it to get to. So we do a lot to really get facts and the correct story. And a lot of us go, and we did a lot of talks to try to explain what we were doing and what the mRNA platform was, and try to educate so people were willing to listen. I think it's important that we are out there and leading the conversation, but in the end, your actions and delivering quality medicine is what will hopefully be the proof. With respect to the remote care, the one innovation that I'm really proud of when we were talking about the vaccine, so the mRNA platform is, I'd say the one difficult part of it is it's required to be in this -70 C. It's very, the stability of the product, it's not good with heat. So you need to keep it, very cold. But we were thinking about people who, maybe don't have electrical to support a freezer of that kind. And so we actually developed, and I always say through crisis comes the best innovation, such great innovation. And then we just unleashed our people, and we just said, we want to be able to reach every patient in the world, regardless of their electrical infrastructure. How do we do it? And the team developed, so, what we call this shipper, that ended up being in the Smithsonian. So the shipper is, so instead of just having a cardboard box that delivers the vaccine and then you throw away the box, the shipper was actually, we spent more money to design one that could be used as a freezer. So you didn't need electricity. Now you needed to use it within 30 days, but within 30 days was not a problem back then. So the team, it wasn't that much more expensive. We partnered with a company, and as long as there was dry ice, which then we partnered with dry ice companies to make sure they were prepared. So we were able to, I would say, break down, because the big misinformation, at the time, it was like, you can't ship the product, it's gonna be wasted, and the vaccine has to be kept at ultra low temperature. And again, I told the team, just ignore that, figure out a way to solve for it. And they did, with this really cool, innovative shipper. And it was one of our engineers who just came up with it one day. And yeah, it was great. So anyway, that was a big breakthrough for us. We're really proud of that. The shipper was able to keep temperature 99.9% of the time, which is pretty impressive. So I would say we lost very little vaccine due to temperature. And then 80% of our locations that received our Pfizer vaccine, 80% of those locations kept our shipper for 30 days, which was amazing. Even in the US, because we thought it would be more like developing nations, even in the US, instead of universities having to invest in this new freezer technology, they just used our shipper temporarily. So I'd say it helped developing areas. So again, through crisis comes innovation. If you just block the noise of disinformation and show them that it can be done.
Thank you.
Do we have time for? Tanya, first of all, I wanted to thank you on behalf of our university for being here, for sharing your experiences and insight, and congratulations on all your achievements. We're very proud of you. I have a kind of a related question. You were in an enviable position at the time when Pfizer came up with the vaccine, and then it was your job, or I guess your team's responsibility to manufacture this vaccine that the world needed to get their hands on at scale, hundreds of millions of doses, right? What were the challenges associated with this manufacturing process?
Yeah, I mean, I think, gosh, there was a lot of challenges. One, we were in the midst of a pandemic, so we couldn't, it was very difficult for us to allow people to be traveling within plants. So we leveraged technology. So we had a lot of iPads on the floor. We literally had these iPads on wheels, so we can troubleshoot issues that were happening real time, since we couldn't fly people, at the time. So there was a bit of we were trying to do this in the middle of a pandemic. So there was a lot more of a leverage on technology to be able to allow us to do that. I think that, probably the hardest thing was that there was this feeling of there was a clock a bit on you. The one thing that we had as an advantage is we have a very large manufacturing network. Most companies outsource a lot of their manufacturing. We do both, but we have 30 plants in our network. So we immediately, and the one thing the company did is gave us a blank check. So that's always helpful. Blank check is always helpful. So I would say it wasn't a challenge, it was an opportunity, but we tapped multiple sites. So we didn't just put all our eggs into one site. So for the mRNA process, we tapped 2 sites. For the filling operation, we tapped 3 sites. And for distribution, we partnered with UPS, FedEx, so and then we had our own distribution center. So I think for us, it was just trying to leverage quickly the expansive network we had, but then they all needed to be in sync, and they couldn't travel easily to each other. So again, it was a lot about making sure that those sites, because if you're going to have 2 sites in the manufacturing process, they need to be the same. So it was just making sure that we really worked as a network to develop it. And then it was, the mRNA platform we were working on, but obviously this accelerated our learning. So we just had to do more experiments, and I would say we failed faster than I have ever seen us fail fast. Because in the beginning, we were doing just a lot of development runs. And in the past, we would have lingered in those failures a bit. We would have studied them, And we did study them, but we moved at a faster pace. So I would say the biggest challenge was making sure that our college, like that the network stayed in sync, keeping up with the science. We were kind of developing it at scale, which is, we don't always do that. So it was just, moving quickly and learning quickly. And then we partnered heavily. So we did a ton of partnerships, like that shipper I mentioned. We partnered with 2 companies. Again, we didn't want to just partner with one. We partnered with 2. We said 50-50. You're both in. But so we were fortunate enough. Obviously, everyone was willing to kind of roll their sleeves up and help us. But just making sure that we brought those partners in. We almost treated them as if they were all Pfizer colleagues, because we wanted to make sure that they felt that same vision of really meeting the timeline. And then our CEO, the one thing that he did really well is, he, like, speed and decision making was critical for us. And I think the one thing that we gave to our teams was, like, it's okay. Like, this is the time for innovation. So if you have a crazy idea, we want to hear it. The shipper was a crazy idea. It was going to be more expensive. I think historically people would have not maybe raised an idea that was going to cause something to be more expensive, So I think just having a culture that people just spoke up and every idea was listened to, I think helped us be more innovative, and in the end created a better solution. But we were fortunate, and then again, that Pfizer had the means to allow us to have that blank check, and then the access. We were very quick on decision making, and the fact that we had a network to work through was good. I would say probably the one biggest, hardest challenge was what was not in our control, which was all the disinformation. We were getting protesters at our sites. Like, I would say the external noise of, you're trying to do the best you can and deliver a healthcare innovation breakthrough, and then people, like, you just had you had to tune that all out, and our people had to tune that out. And then the other big barrier was governments were not behaving. So what was happening is we were trying to move material across country, cross boundary, and product was getting stopped at borders, right? So we're actually the largest supplier in the U.S. Well, we're a large supplier of hospital medicines globally. And so a lot of those medicines were needed in the ICU in the pandemic. So, like, I'd say put the vaccine to the side. Even just movement of goods across the world was really difficult in the pandemic, and I'd say made our jobs really harder. We had to, the amount of paperwork, extra bureaucracy that governments put on us just to move material across country, cross borders, was difficult. So I would say the external world was almost harder for us than, I think, within the company. We were given everything to be successful. And we had some trips and bumps, but I would say we overall had a culture that allowed us to kind of, fail fast and learn quickly, and then just try to manage the external environment.
If no one has a question, I have a question.
In the interest of time, I guess the last question, right? Okay, so Tanya, it's great, wonderful talk. I have a question regarding, you said that when you started, you were the only woman in the manufacturing plant, and you also mentioned that we should not spend time trying to fit in. Apparently, you didn't spend energy trying to fit in. So how did you do so well without considering that aspect?
First of all, I was really fortunate to have a lot of great male mentors. So I think a lot of great bosses who allowed me and encouraged me to use my voice, and then through, I would say, a mixture of structured and unstructured mentors along the way. You can't underestimate the power of having both informal and formal mentorship. So you can talk because I find I am not productive when I try to work things out in my head by myself. So I think especially early in your career, the more that both universities and industry can have forums in which students or young professionals can network with other people and be other leaders and be able to talk things out, because something that I was going through, someone else had already gone through already, right? So I think for me, I think it was a combination of one, I had a lot of great mentors who allowed me to use my voice, encouraged me to literally always take a seat at the table, even if I was the most junior person in the room, you know, so I got that advice pretty early on. And then, and then it's, you know, you need to work hard. So I always say, like, it's not, you have to work hard. That's like a given. You have to be helpful and be clear about, like, when you work in a team environment, I always say, like, what's our goal as a team, and forget what role you play, like, we're all in it as a team. So I think I was always leaning towards, like, working cross boundaries and then working towards one common goal versus like a political interest. It's not about my success, it's about our success. And I think that resonated a lot with people. But in the end, I would say, the mentorship programs and different projects that I was allowed to kind of put my hand up. Anytime there was like any project that they were looking for a volunteer for, I raised my hand. So I was just really eager and young and ready to learn, and I was in a great manufacturing facility that allowed that to happen. So it's a bit on like you, it's a bit on the environment. And then it's making sure that you find the people in the organization that you can trust and talk to and bounce things off of. That's a work for me. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Hi. So thank you for a fascinating talk. Yeah. And also, as a token of appreciation, we have a small gift.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
No,
Stay in front of the banner. Got it. Greg, you're running away.
Come here.
Greg, come.
Go, yeah, on that. Yeah, right there. Perfect. Oh, that's perfect.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Thank you. Very inspired. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, this one, center. Mhm. All right. Now we will move on to the next portion of the event. 5 faculty members from the Schaefer School will present their research highlights.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Ping Guang Lai. I'm an assistant professor from chemical engineering and material science. Today I want to share some of our work applying machine learning and AI for drug screening. I think Tanya has gave a very good introduction how AI and machine learning has been revolutionized the pharmaceutical industry. So in our group, we focus on therapeutic antibody drugs. And antibody is one of the most popular biological drugs in the pharmaceutical industry. And in our lab, we particularly focus on high concentration antibody. And there are some issues for developing high concentration antibodies. The first one is aggregation. So some antibodies, they tend to aggregate, and this aggregation will reduce the effective concentrations. In the worst case, aggregation will induce unwanted immune response. Another issue for high concentration antibody is viscosity. And what is viscosity an issue? It's related to how we deliver antibodies. Traditionally, antibody drugs are delivered through intravenous injection. But to do intravenous injection, patients need to go to the hospital and get help from trained nurses or doctors, and they need to stay there for several hours. This is not very convenient for patients. Another approach is to use subcutaneous injection. So using subcutaneous injection, patients can inject antibody drugs by themselves at home and only take a few minutes. is much more convenient for patients. However, to do subcutaneous injection, the limitation is the volume of subcutaneous injection is limited to 1 to 1.5 milliliter. To reach sufficient amount of doses, high concentration antibodies is needed. As high concentration, some antibodies tend to have high viscosity, or they become very sticky, so it is very difficult to withdraw the drug and inject into patients. This is a structure of antibodies. It is a large protein molecules. On the top of antibodies are the variable regions, and on the variable regions we have 6 CDR loops. So a lot of sequence diversity are in these CDR loops, and this diversity of CDR loops affect each antibody's specificity, affinity to the antigen. Also, it affects their biophysical properties, including their aggregation and viscosity property. In early stage drug discovery, we usually don't have much material to do high concentration measurement. So if we can apply computational tools to predict which antibody is going to have stability issues at later stage, it's going to save a lot of time for pharmaceutical industry. There are some computational tools developed early on to screen antibody aggregation and viscosity. One tool is called spatial aggregation propensity. This is an aggregation prediction tool. It measures the surface exposed hydrophobicity. Another tool is called spatial charge map. It calculates the surface exposed negative charge, and we use it to predict viscosity. But later on, we found aggregation and viscosity depends both on aggregation and charge. We cannot separate them. But what's the relative contribution of each factor? It's very difficult to understand or to find. So we want to apply machine learning to help us to find the the relative contribution of these biophysical properties. And another issue for these computational tools is that traditionally we need to use molecular dynamic simulation, which takes a long time to calculate these properties. We're trying to solve these issues by applying machine learning. Let's see what's the challenge of using the traditional methods. The first issue is these proteins, they're highly dynamic. So if we want to capture this dynamic behavior, we're going to do dynamic simulations. The issue for dynamic simulations is that it is computationally expensive, especially for a full-length antibody. So if we only have like 10 candidates, it's probably okay to do that. But if we have hundreds of candidates, it's not efficient to run like dynamic simulations. Another issue for applying dynamic simulation is that because these simulations, they have noises. It's because these are the stochastic process with these empty simulations. So even given the same systems, these properties or features are not reproducible because of this noise. So if we don't do dynamic simulation, we use static structure to calculate these properties. One issue is that there are different ways to predict the structures. And there are also many different parameters or force field you can use to calculate these properties. All these issues prevent the challenge to use traditional computational methods to do drug screening. So we're trying to solve these problems by applying machine learning or more advanced method called deep learning to accelerate this biophysical property calculation. Traditionally, we need to start from antibody sequence, build their structures, run MD simulations on supercomputers. It might take several hours to days, depending on the power of your hardware. And based on this, we have a lot of previous simulation results. And we can use these as a training data to find a machine learning surrogate models. And these surrogate models only take sequence as the input. We don't need to go through all this step. We just go directly from sequence to the property. and it only takes a few seconds on the on laptops. So it is more efficient than traditional computational methods. So we have expanded our methods to 3 different properties, include the SAP method and the SCN, positive charge and negative charge, on 10 different antibody regions. In total, we have 30 deep SP properties. These properties are designed specifically for antibodies, and a lot of our computational tools, they are general tools for proteins, but they are not designed for antibodies. Our properties have an advantage because they are specifically for antibodies. After we develop these tools, we have a case study in collaboration with AstraZeneca. We collected 229 antibodies and measured their viscosity at high concentration at 150 milligram per milliliter. So here's the distribution of our data. We have 162 low viscosity antibodies and 67 high viscosity antibodies. And we use our previous work as an independent test set to see how generalizable this trend model. In total, we have 16 antibodies independent for testing. So the baseline model, if we predict all of them as low viscosity, is 62.5%. This is the baseline model. There's some details of our feature and the model training. So we use all the 30 deep SP features and the MD features as a comparison for machine learning model building. We use all the commonly used machine learning models, and we use the 229 data sets for training, and we test our model accuracy using the 16 independent data sets. So this is the results we got. So using the deep SP features, so here we have 3 bars. The blue shows the accuracy for the training data. Orange is the accuracy for the validation data. And the most important is the green one. This is the accuracy for the independent test data. So we show, here's a lot of different methods, machine learning methods. The best we found is the neural network, artificial neural network. We have 88% accuracy on the independent test sets. And comparing with the deep SP features, the traditional ND features give very similar results. The best model is the artificial neural network model. But deep SP features is much more efficient. Let's say we have several hundred candidates. We can predict their viscosity in a few seconds. In conclusion, we found traditional modeling approach are time-consuming and had some reproducibility issues. And we developed a deep SP method, which is a neural network circuit model for SAP and SCN calculation. And we also developed a deep viscosity model using a data set in collaboration with AstraZeneca. And we reach a remarkable prediction performance on independent data set. And we believe deep SP can be used as a general descriptors for antibody modeling, antibodies to model other biophysical properties. So I would like to thank my students at Stevens in my lab and my collaborators at AstraZeneca and all the computing resources used for this project. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions.
A little time. Thank you, Ping Kwang. I have one quick question for you for the machine learning, because I know it's pretty, still very, very important aspect. Now, how you want to take this to the next step, and what's your plan for the next?
Yeah, so there are a lot of properties for antibody development, not just viscosity. So we believe these tools, these features we develop, can be used for many other antibody stability property prediction. And we're gonna collaborate with pharmaceutical companies to collect more data and build models for them and develop these tools for them to do drug screening. Yeah, and that's the next step. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's a great honor here to introduce our recent work in my research lab and in our cluster. I'm again a assistant professor from biomedical engineering department. Yeah. Oh, only the pointer. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So my research falls into the cluster biomedical sensing and imaging in CHI. This cluster is a multidisciplinary team that we focus on developing innovative sensing and imaging technology to enable new capabilities in biomedicine. And from the research part, we have both hardware and software. We have some faculty members working on the instrumentation building image systems. We also have faculty members working on software, cover a broad spectrum of technical expertise. And in terms of research areas, we also work from both biology to medicine to try to answer a variety of questions and clinical needs to improve human health. And specifically for my research lab is named Intelligent Imaging and Image Processing Lab. So we focus onto the software part. We develop softwares to better biomedical imaging, to process data, to better the imaging processing. And also we are, for our goal, we try to improve the diagnosis and treatment by unveiling the critical disease-related feature from those images. So today, my example will be from cardiovascular disease to help the treatment of cardiovascular disease to help the coronary imaging process. And before we go to the specific example, I will talk a little bit more about the AI in medical imaging. Actually, just now, Dr. Mai gave a fantastic talk on AI in drug, in chemical engineering. This talk is also on AI, but we focus a little bit more on imaging or images. So AI generally corresponds to a broad set of methods and algorithms and techniques that make the software smart. So we're developing algorithms. You probably see some of those stuff in your life. ChatGPT, I believe both of them have used that. Google almost every day. And also the other two is from the hardware side, GPU, which really makes the computer powerful or the algorithm powerful, and also those supercomputing resources. It's all those components putting together make the computer smart, make the algorithm powerful. And in our research with the input medical images, the left one is called optical coherence tomography. We place a lot on that. And the right one is from CT shape. And from those images, we're using AI, using those softwares to help with the clinical guidance, to bring new biological insight, and also help with the decision making. And from the title of this talk, you probably see that it's not just AI, it's also generative AI. So generative AI specifically refers to a subset of AI that help to learn the underlying patterns and structures of data sets to generate new data points that are plausible and could be part of the original data. For example, if you are using ChatGPT, they know how human being was talking, and when you have new input, the computer try to generate this kind of language or sentence that is similar to human being. Or you probably see some of the cases using AI, we can generate MRI, we can generate CT, those images to help train medical students to in like multiple applications. So generative AI creating new data can be very powerful in medical, in health related applications. The application so far has been widely used in medical simulation, drug discovery, medical chatbots, medical imaging, medical research, patient care, diagnosis, and also treatment plans. Okay, so with generative AI, what we can do? So here is an example about heart beating, coronary imaging. This one, we are looking into human heart and cardiovascular disease, which is actually the leading cause of human deaths in the United States and all over the world. And we look specifically, we look into the blood vessel, coronary. So blood goes through this vessel and really supply the human system. And what's the issue there? This vessel can be blocked, which we call as sclerosis. If with this kind of plaque to block the vessel, it can go to some disastrous consequence. So typical treatment to deal with this kind of disease is to place stent, to have stent to widen those vessels. And with this kind of process, how to place the stent or how to effectively place the stent, we need to provide guidance which one to place the stent. And also we need to evaluate after placing the stent whether it is effective, whether there's like cells growing on the stent, whether there's drug eluted by the stent that effectively prevent future blockage of the vessel. That requires a lot of information, cannot be directly obtained without imaging. And so we need to do imaging. We need to use ultrasound of OCT to identify those cases to better the treatment and follow-up assessment. However, there are some issues. There are issues we have to address from biomedical engineering side. First issue is about resolution, or more specifically, it's a trade-off between resolution and image speed. If we want to get high resolution, we need more pixels, and the image speed is slow. But if we are doing imaging, we are having a catheter like a camera going into human's vessel. It can those imaging procedures need to be very short, making minimal impact on the patient. So we cannot really go to that low speed. We have to go fast, and in that case, the resolution decreased. So with this kind of trade-off, we are thinking about how can we develop an intelligent imaging strategy to break the trade-off to acquire high resolution and high image speed. The second one is pathological pattern. Clinically, if we really want to identify a region, we need histology process, which is a destructive offline process, take a super long period of time. It is currently the golden standard to identify pathologic samples, but we cannot do it in real time. We cannot do it in vivo. So we're thinking about using generative AI. Can we possibly generate those kind of pathologic information during the image process? And the third one is diseased region. We're doing imaging, and that helps to visualize those patterns. But what really the clinician would like to see is whether it's disease or not. So can we use AI or generative AI to help this part? Okay, to answer this question, we're using AI, we're using deep learning to try to solve this issue. And here I'm showing you some of the examples using AI or using generative AI, what we can achieve. So the first one is about multi-scale super resolution. We are improving resolution without sacrificing the speed. So we get a small number of image, downsampled image, which is showing on the upper left. And with our algorithm, we are so flexible, we can improve the resolution from multiple scales. And you can probably see that even though we improve the resolution from a scale factor of 4, those image from downsampling image can be pretty close to the reference image and also the golden standard, which is histology. So we are generating high resolution image without sacrificing image speed. We are generating important informations using AI. The second example is virtual histology. We talk about the needs that we need like real-time visualization of pathologic samples that was previously only available in our like destructive offline analysis. And we're using generative AI to generate like virtual histology, which is like histology-like image from those real-time image. So this one, if you compare this pathologic histology image with the previous one, a lot of pathologists, our collaborator told us like they can barely see the difference. So with this kind of generative AI, we have the potential to like extract those like pathological patterns, those colorful visualizations during a real-time imaging process. And the third one is actually a video, like to identify those diseased region. We see the image and we want to see more information from that. So this one, we're using AI to provide a tool to dynamically monitoring those diseased pattern in coronary arteries. So using AI, we can improve the resolution, we can provide pathological images, and we can also do dynamic tracking for those disease patterns for coronary imaging. Yeah, so that's pretty much 3 examples that is in my research lab. We're using generative AI for coronary imaging. Outside those coronary research, we have multiple projects working on biomedical imaging, using AI to address issues in data science or image science. The left one are 2 examples about weakly supervised learning. Those examples include like if we are training our computer AI, previously we need like fully supervised learning. We fed the computer with all images, like those are segmentation tasks, meaning that we want to draw the boundary. We provide them pixel-wise the information to draw the boundary. The first column shows that our initial effort, if we treat the computer not with pixel-wise information, rather than that we go a little bit high level and less cost by image level, we are still able to segment those regions with weakly supervised information. And the second row and third row corresponds to the examples that we do label correction. Like if we are training computer, but those information are not perfect, they are imperfect labels, we are developing algorithms to bring those erroneous label to a correct way. So those are from medical images, and the upper right one is our effort to on biologic side. We are looking about the interaction between cancer cell and T cells. We're developing segmentation algorithm to track the interaction between T cell and cancer cells over time. And the middle one is about fusion learning. It corresponds to the case where we want to train like a computer AI model, but we don't have enough example. And in that case, we just send the computer with fusion learning and develop a robust algorithm to build the relationship between the few amount of training data and the whole set of testing data. And the last one is about image denoising. We develop our AI method to try to improve the image quality of brain imaging to unveil those disease-related patterns to better the diagnosis and treatment. Okay, so that's pretty much what my research lab is working on. As an effort by all my PhD students, my collaborators, and also we would like to thank those generous sponsors from National Science Foundation, National Institute of Health, and USDA, and New Jersey Health Foundation, and also those Provide Foundation brought welcome. Yeah. And lastly, thank you so much for your attention. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Sorry about the delay. I'm another assistant professor of the biomedical engineering department at Stevens. So I'm very honored to represent our molecular cellular tissue technology cluster within CHI. So I would like to give you some update on our recent progress on our research that centers around solving donor lung shortage issues. So the lung disease represent substantial global challenge. It is one of the leading cause of deaths and illness around the world. Almost 200 million people get affected by different type of lung disease, and every year over 8 million people die. And by the way, these numbers are collected before the pandemic, so I think I have to update this slide. So for many patients, some of my slides are broken and text are not shown here, but many patients with end-stage lung disease without any therapeutic option, the only option to extend their life is to transplant new donor lungs, the healthy lungs that are donated by organ donors. So this lung transplantation technology has been developed in 1963. And since then, over 70,000 people received a new lung and restored their life. And over 2,500 people get new lives because of this innovative procedure. However, the biggest challenge here is there are not many donor lungs that are donated that can be transplanted, but also 80%, nearly 80% of the donor lungs are disqualified for the transplantation because of their poor quality. So basically, their gas exchange function is not good enough to be transplanted. So they are basically 80% of them are not used, and while there are many people, so many people are waiting to receive new lungs. So around 2010, there were two groups of people who came up with this innovative idea and published in research journal that described the tissue engineering technology they came up with that can allow them to repair this damaged lung. So basically, this technology allowed scientists to remove all the cellular component that are damaged or diseased that caused the organ rejection and implant a new healthy cell, specifically a stem cell derived from the recipient. And then the function of the lung can be improved and transplanted. So that was the whole idea, and they demonstrated this idea using rat. However, unfortunately, lung is a very complex organ. So as you can see here in the plastic mold, the airways bifurcate multiple times from trachea to all the way into the alveoli where the gas change occur. And also the tissue is really fragile. So during this tissue engineering procedure, we do that delicate tissue can be damaged. So we try to fix the damaged lung that are rejected, but actually during the process, we can damage the lung more. So this is a really challenging issue. So But our lab is not giving up. So we are working really hard to come up with an innovative engineering technique and devices to promote the functional recovery of donor lung. So I would like to briefly talk about three research projects. They include a small airway bioreactor system and whole human lung bioreactor system and the biosensor technology that we are creating. So when we inhaled air, we inhale not only the oxygen, but unfortunately we inhale a lot of different dangerous stuff like a virus, bacteria, and dust. And the epithelium that is lining on the surface of the airway is extremely important to maintain our health. So the ciliated cell on the airway surface, they are beating repeatedly to remove all the pathogen and dust that we inhale. But frequently this cell layer is damaged, and this cell layer damage, epithelial layer damage is one of the reasons why the donor lungs are rejected. So our team is trying to create a bioreactor that can allow us to culture this airway tissue derived from animals or manufactured using tissue engineering technique to understand how this damaged epithelial cell can restore their native function. So we do some imaging analysis to trace the particle that represent the dust or the pathogen that are inhaled. So we study how this injury can be eventually resolved so that we can improve the function of the donor lung rejected due to the injury. And the second project is about creating this human lung bioreactor. So in order to fix the human lungs, we have to keep them outside for longer period of time. So when we get lung disease, we don't get recovered within few hours. We need at least few days, right? But the existing system known as the ex vivo lung perfusion system, they can support the lung outside the body only for about 12 hours. And after that, the lung function decline. So we came up, our team include the surgeons and engineers at Columbia University and the Vanderbilt University came up with this innovative idea where the recipient is actually acting as a bioreactor. So this recipient, described as a swine host here, has two lungs, so one pair inside and the donor lung outside. So we can do some intervention to improve the function. And I will show you soon. This system is this photograph is the system that we created at Columbia University Medical Center. And we did some intervention that we came up with, and including stem cell therapy, and also the innovative biomaterial that we are creating that will deliver into the lung. And unfortunately, the beautiful photo is not shown here somehow, but we show that the lung function has been improved over time, and we were able to successfully support the ex vivo lung outside the body for multiple days. So the last project that I want to talk about is about creating a biosensor. So during this donor lung reconditioning or regeneration, we have to monitor the lung function, whether it is improving or not in response to the treatment we are providing. But existing conventional methods that are slow and sometimes invasive, and they don't typically provide a quantitative result. So we are creating biosensors that can allow us to monitor the functional improvement of the donor lung more precisely and timely manner. So as an example, I'm showing here three technologies. One is about using the force sensor to understand the tissue mechanics. So the mechanics of the tissue, especially lung, is very deformable tissue because we have to inhale air. So we are monitoring the mechanical property change to understand the lung function improvement using robotic palpation device we created. And also when we do the inhalation and exhalation, a lot of air go in and out, so it creates some sound. So second technology is the sound-based technology to understand the lung the airflow improvement inside the lung. And the last one is about using electrical sensor technology that we are creating to understand how the lung tissue is being improved. So yeah, I think I spoke too fast, but yeah, I would like to thank my three very motivated students and also collaborators and also funding support. Thank you very much.
Hi, Dr. Kim. So my question is, when the recipient receives this lung donor, how are you planning on preventing or mitigating the effects of the immune response?
Yeah, so normally when people receive the donor organ, they go through this immunosuppressive medication. So they take the medication to reduce the immune response. And another innovative approach can be creating the organ using or repairing the organ using the stem cell that is derived from the patient recipient. So that has been one goal that our team has been pursuing, but it's really challenging. So basically, you replace the damaged cell from the recipient's organ with the healthy stem cell derived from the recipient. Yeah, so the lung become more like the recipient's own lung. So that could be the one way, but it's a challenging task.
Okay. Just the next presentation. Okay, great. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Robert Chang. I am an associate professor in the mechanical engineering department. And for CHI, I am a member of the multifunctional, multi-scale biomaterials and biofabrication cluster. And following, Professor Leong, who is a giant in the biomaterials field, I thank my lucky stars that I work in the area of biofabrication because I can't top that on the biomaterials side. So here at Stevens, I lead a team that basically works on research problems related to additive manufacturing or 3D printing, process modeling and development. So our group really trains our focus on really how we can innovate on the process side to elevate the biofabrication field, really from what I see more or less an artisan-based kind of trial and error type of approach to one that is on a quantitative level of prediction and control. So this entails identifying the relevant design, material, and process parameters, formulating the interrelationships, and the equations that really govern the various printing processes and thus allow for their optimization. So kind of the bread and butter of what we do is establishing basically the relationship between the additive processing of the biomaterials or bio ink and the structural mechanical properties for the printed tissue constructs. Now, and when we do so all the while integrating the biological performance outcomes to our workflow based on the targeted life science or clinical application. Now, we've taken some of our cues from Army Biofab USA. If you are not familiar with this institute, this is the Advanced Regenerative Manufacturing Institute. This is a public-private partnership with member organizations from industry, academia, not-for-profits. And the charge for this institute is basically to regenerate tissues in a way that's automated, reproducible, done in a closed system, and fabricated at scale. So these are kind of some of the thematic threads that kind of course through our ongoing kind of research projects. Now, what I like to do here, this is kind of my perspective slide, if you will, on what the kind of nucleating factors or drivers are for biofabrication research. So my wide angle kind of view on this is that biofabrication research appears to be progressing on three major fronts, or you can look at it as kind of avenues to formulate the research problems in the biofabrication area. So first, there's process-driven research, which really focuses on the printing technology to improve things like resolution and accuracy of 3D printing, while preserving cell viability, supporting the design of complex architectures, making the process scalable while reducing print times and cost, and allowing basically specific functionalities, things like multi-material printing, the ability to print heterogeneous and gradient structures, to name a few. Next, there's biomaterials research, which kind of seeks to develop novel bioink formulations. So not only, I would say, new materials, but also expanding the range of printable material formulations that kind of improve printability or support tissue differentiation and maturation, and allow basically the study of cells within an engineered 3D microenvironment. And finally, there's an application-driven research. This is what I consider more like use-inspired or product-oriented research centered on specific utilities of 3D printing, that is distinct tissues, pathology models, or organ on a chip for drug discovery. So from a technology kind of the platform innovation standpoint, a quad extruding bioprinting in a support bath paradigm is advanced in our lab to create discrete interfaces between the unit structures, or you can call them fibers, in both the layering as well as the lateral directions. And so this method enables what I call non-self-supporting structures with water-rich and relatively low viscosity bioink material to be omnidirectionally printed while preserving dimensional stability and cell viability. And therefore, you can see that it's kind of expanding the material palette with which you can kind of paint with, so to speak. So the specific research problem that we're working on here is addressing basically the challenge of directly printing a microvascular network onto a non-planar vascular graft surface, including a toolpath design surface inset approach and the incorporation of a 3-axis rotary system integrated with our 3D support bath bioprinting system configuration. So if successful, the research outcomes will enable kind of precision fabrication of microvasculature with direct integration with and perfusion of the large vessel wall, basically ensuring long-term patency and viability of, let's say, a bypass graft. Now we recently leveraged a high-resolution electrohydrodynamic based 3D printing technology in the topical area of musculoskeletal disorders, an area that the DoD is keenly interested in. And so as background, the muscle regeneration is limited as a function of the type and extent of tissue insults that may be sustained, let's say on the battlefield, resulting in a characteristic defect size. They call this volumetric muscle loss, or VML. And so to address this clinical problem, our studies rest on the premise that mechanical stimulation can yield therapeutic benefits by presenting the needed biophysical cues that emulate the natural cascade of muscle regeneration. So specifically, the key enabling technological innovation we've established is a electrohydrodynamic printing process-induced mechanical stimulation platform. This is where we're incorporating onboard mechanical stimulation of the fibrous muscle spindle construct to essentially precondition the engineered muscle construct prior to implantation. Now, so the kind of launching point for this project is to first gain some mechanistic insight into how we can ensure placement accuracy of the printed fibers and how they may interact to form the evolving muscle spindle construct. And so we analytically model the charge interactions between the constituent fibers using a non-dimensionalization approach to predict when fibers will be attracted to one another and whether there is a high probability of perhaps fiber overlapping. We then looked at the effect of layering the charged fibers in the context of varying process parameters such as collector temperature to modulate the construct architecture. It turns out that we can model the conditions that lend themselves to observing, in this case, wall gap structures, and under a different set of conditions, we obtain, you can see on the bottom left, a spindle-like structure. So hopefully you can see where this is going. So these observations and analysis kind of motivated us to essentially progress from creating these traditional lattice architectures down here on the bottom left to tubular structures on top there, really with the ultimate goal of reproducibly fabricating a fibrous muscle spindle structure down here, here in the middle. And what we stumbled upon during the muscle spindle fabrication exercise is that quantitative variations in the voltage process parameter offer us basically a pathway to actuate the muscle spindle both in process as well as post-process. Now, I wanted to show you a video, I hope this works, a video of our process-induced actuation of a muscle spindle structure. So clinically, our approach promises to facilitate the fabrication and mechanical stimulation of a custom muscle tissue constructs. As I have indicated, the 3D spindle-like structure is fabricated by way of our high-resolution 3D printing process, which essentially draws the fibers with an applied voltage. And so to confer mechanical stimulation, the voltage parameter is modulated to essentially morph the muscle spindles to reach a new kind of shape-wise equilibrium. And so kind of as final remarks, the next major milestone, if you will, for us is really to see if we can recapitulate the biomechanical function of native skeletal muscle by capturing the in vivo stimuli or mechanobiology within the in vitro engineered muscle spindle tissues. And so with that, I would like to thank you. I want to acknowledge NSF and DoD for the support of this work. Thank my past and current students. You know, I look at the students, it's almost like the way we're able to operate in our lab or kind of build things up is that each student kind of passes the baton to the next. So I look at it as it's kind of like a long relay. A long relay. We don't know how many members. It's certainly more than a 4x800, but it's basically going to go on forever. And I'm lucky enough to have the vantage point being the one, so the students, they kind of, when they graduate, they exit stage left, but I have the vantage point and the fortune of being able to see how this race plays out. So with that, I'm really fortunate to be in this position and thank the students for their hard work and dedication. Questions? Yes.
Thank you. Great work. We find that in bioprinting, printing a high enough cell density is a challenge. For example, in your printing of tissue engineered blood vessel, it just does not work that well in getting mature functional blood vessels.
That's right. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why we're opting for kind of the support bath printing, emergent support bath printing technique, because it's you can work with very low viscosity, right? Cells are very high water content, and so when you increase the density of those cells, right, and you seed it in biomaterials, typically you need to have very high concentrations. It needs to be very viscous. But in these kind of support bath or suspension bath printing paradigm, you're able to incorporate significantly more cells in the construct. Okay.
Hello, thank you everyone. My name is Ravi Nataraj. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Biomedical Engineering, and I am representing the CHI Biomechanics and Rehabilitation Engineering Cluster. So to introduce everyone, sorry, I'm gonna have to read this verbatim because I do not have it committed to memory, but in describing each of the labs that are contributing to the cluster, starting with our cluster leads, Dr. Zafario's lab studies human mobility and movement control during complex maneuvers and develops biofeedback technology that leverages music to improve movement training. The Weckenmeyer lab uses experimental methods and multiphysics modeling to understand the biomechanical behavior of living soft materials with a particular focus on the brain. The Robotics and Automation Lab, led by Yi Guo, investigates robot and sensor technology for health applications, including assistive robotics to enhance mobility and social connectedness of older adults. Dr. Feng Lu's Brain Imaging and Graph Learning or BAGEL Lab develops AI and machine learning models for localizing seizure onset zones and using EEG and fMRI to identify network biomarkers for brain disorders. The McConnell Lab aims to understanding mechanisms and developing electrical stimulation approaches for the treatment of neurological diseases such as Parkinson's. I will be speaking shortly about my lab. The Active Nanomaterials and Devices Lab, headed by Yong Shi, develops novel sensors and actuators for projects involving contact mechanics in vascular arteries and innovations in active guide wire and thrombus retrieving devices for neurointerventional surgery. And finally, Dr. Zanato's Wearable Robotic Systems Lab develops wearable technologies for robot-assisted rehabilitation and human motion analysis and monitoring. I hope you got all that. All right, so our lab is the Movement Control Rehabilitation or MOCOR lab. I wanted to highlight the PhD students who have mainly contributed over the years. And collectively, what we aim to do is to optimize computerized interfaces for movement rehabilitation for persons with neurological injuries, specifically trauma to the brain or the spinal cord. So what we do in our lab is really inspired from my training, which involved the development of real-time control systems for powered assistive devices like exoskeletons and neuroprostheses that use muscle stimulation to restore movement function for people who have spinal cord injury and limb amputation. Typically, the objectives of these controllers are mechanical. It's for maximizing movement performance or minimizing effort for both the user and the device in terms of mechanical energy. So what our lab is endeavoring to do is to broaden the objectives of these controllers and to now further consider user perceptions and bodily recordings that you can measure from the brain, muscle, or the skin to now adapt the user-device interface parameters involving levels of control and sensory feedback that may be used for guidance to better operate that device or to recover movement function independent for the user. So hopefully, ultimately, the users feel more in sync with the device interface and most importantly, can learn to perform movements with or without the device at a higher level more quickly. Oops. So in terms of the fundamental science that, let's see if these videos actually play. Okay, yes. We're looking to demonstrate how changes in the user device interfaces that are driven by movement ultimately affect user performance, perceptions, and bodily responses. Some of the notable findings from my lab include the fact that we've determined that when you vary features of feedback to inform movement during training, specifically the complexity of the feedback, meaning how much information the user receives to have to process to be able to guide their movement, or to the degree they feel embodied to the feedback that they're receiving. These particular features can have an immediate impact on post-training performance. And we've also determined that varying modes of control in the interface, meaning how quickly the interface is responding to the user, the level of automation that's present, the addition of noise will proportionally impact both the performance and the perception of agency for the user. So the point being, if the user feels as if they have greater voluntary control of the interface, they typically perform better. So we've leveraged some of these principles as part of custom-made applications for rehabilitative training. We are aiming to use virtual reality as the basis, including instrumented wearables, in having these immersive environments to really employ more engaging sensory cues to the user, which can be visual, audio, or haptic. And with the particular platforms that we've developed, we're looking to improve functional capabilities for grasp and place and general upper body control. So when we've evaluated these platforms initially with neurotypical individuals, we've determined that modifying simply the timing of the feedback during training that is known based on theory, which I'll spare you from, that can promote feelings of agency during training will in fact improve post-training performance. And also, interestingly, we've determined that if you present the feedback in a way that can actually elicit more arousal that we measure through electrodermal activity while still maintaining similar levels of cognitive loading, you can then also enhance post-training performance to suggest the value in having more physical engagement without mentally overwhelming the person can then be the basis by which you can optimize their training curves. So we have had a chance to evaluate these platforms also with clinical populations, specifically people with a traumatic brain injury or spinal cord injury with our clinical partners at the Kessler Foundation and the Bronx VA Medical Center. And I think we've seen a lot of interesting things, but I just want to highlight how I think we've really established increasing the intensity of the sensory guidance will have impacts that are very unique to whether or not you have neurological injury. So for example, guidance that's more intense because say we are providing both visual and audio cues concurrently can be something that causes cognitive overload for neurotypicals that we end up demonstrating through reduced performance. But that same feedback can actually be beneficial to people who have brain or spinal cord injury, as they can then leverage that feedback to cross neural thresholds more readily to facilitate motor learning. So in conclusion, I think users are highly sensitive to targeted changes in computerized training interfaces driven by movement. With that, I think there's notable opportunity to optimize such interfaces for better gains in function. So our lab's current and future goal is now to create these adaptive control systems for computerized training that will respond to real-time changes in user perceptions and bodily measures, and hopefully achieve our gold standard objective of accelerating progress along motor learning curves. So I'd like to acknowledge the students that have contributed to our work at a co-author level, our primary support sources, remind you who we are as a cluster, and thank you. Any questions? Okay, all right. Yep.
Thank you so much for sharing all the exciting work, and I love how it just wrapped together and flowed so nicely. I guess more general question, what were the biggest surprises you think through those studies?
The biggest surprises. So very much at a human level, just how individuals with neurological injury just respond to the interface initially. The fact that we have to tune and adapt the interface very specifically in ways that are different from neurotypicals versus those who have neurological injury, the feedback that, so I should say with all of these platforms, there's definitely a lot of fine tuning of the interface just to ensure that the person feels comfortable, that they're really responding to specifically our controls of the cues and not to something else. And it's just amazing. I think the feedback that people with a neurological injury provide us to suggest that, you know, they need refinements on these levels that are so unique from neurotypicals. I think for me, that's surprising in a way that keeps evolving and is in a way that makes us have to rethink whatever we're going to do the next time around. So, any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
All right, this concludes the speech portion of the event. Thank you to all the faculty members for your presentation and the incredible work that you do in this field. Thank you all for attending. Now, please join us for the reception and student poster presentation in the gallery room upstairs. Thank you all.